Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Eco of Life, let's start. Some people don't hate others, they simply can't handle the noise of a crowd. The chatter, the overlapping laughter, the pressure to perform. You'll find them crafting excuses before a party, hesitating before replying to an invitation, staring in the mirror and wondering why being around others feels like running an emotional marathon. They aren't cold, arrogant, or antisocial. They simply experience life through a different kind of awareness. The psychology behind why some people avoid social events isn't about shyness or disinterest. It's about protection. A quiet internal struggle between the desire for connection and the need for comfort, between wanting to belong and needing room to breathe. For them, social gatherings don't recharge. They drain. Every conversation feels like another open tab in the mind. Every smile becomes a layer of performance. It's not that they don't care. It's that they care too much, noticing tone shifts, subtle expressions, shifts in energy. They can sense a forced laugh or hidden discomfort. Their minds are wired for depth, and that kind of perception comes at a cost. Overstimulation. What's often called social anxiety isn't always fear. Sometimes it's emotional exhaustion in disguise. Introversion isn't a lack of social desire. It's a craving for meaningful exchange. People who avoid large gatherings aren't avoiding people. They're avoiding the shallow interaction that often comes with crowds. Their nervous systems seek sincerity. When they say, "I'd rather stay in," it's not laziness. It's self-preservation. Quiet is where they return to themselves. There's also a psychological reason why group settings can feel suffocating. Every social scene unconsciously triggers a primal need for safety. Humans evolved in tribes, and exclusion once meant literal danger. So even today, entering a room activates a subtle scan. Do I fit here? Am I being judged? For those attuned to emotional nuance, this scan never stops. The mind keeps analyzing, comparing, assessing. No wonder staying home feels easier. Yet here lies the paradox. Those who avoid gatherings often crave deep connection the most. They want to be understood, not crowded. They desire intimacy without exposure. They want to speak only when words carry weight. To laugh not in the echo of small talk, but in moments of genuine warmth. This is the quiet tension of the socially reserved, the pull between isolation and authenticity. It's not loneliness they fear. It's feeling disconnected in a crowd. If you've ever declined an invite and later felt guilty, you've touched this conflict. Scrolling through event photos, people smiling, lights glowing, you might whisper, "Maybe I should have gone." But deep down, you knew it wouldn't have felt right. Not because you didn't belong, but because you would have been there in body, not spirit, counting minutes until leaving, smiling through fatigue. That's not belonging. That's survival. Research on emotional sensitivity shows that some people have what's called high sensory processing sensitivity. They process sensory and emotional stimuli more deeply. Crowded environments don't just distract, they overwhelm. Conversations layered over music, flashing lights, constant motion can feel painful. Their brains register more information per second. Withdrawing isn't dysfunction, it's intelligence. It's the body saying, "This is too loud for my soul." Yet society rarely understands. We live in a world that rewards extroversion, the loud, the charming, the ones who work a room. Solitude is often seen as a flaw, silence as awkwardness, reflection as weakness. Many who prefer quiet grow up hearing, "You need to open up," or "You're missing out." But what if missing out on noise is how they find meaning? What if their quiet isn't a problem, but a preference? There's a deeper layer, too, the link between self-concept and social behavior. Many who avoid gatherings have histories of feeling unseen or misunderstood. Over time, the brain forms an association. Being around people equals discomfort. The subconscious remembers rejection like the body remembers pain. So an invitation isn't just a friendly offer, it's a potential replay of past judgment. It's not people they avoid, it's emotional repetition. Still, these individuals often possess high emotional intelligence. When they choose to enter a room, they listen more than they speak. They notice what others overlook. Their empathy runs deep, but so does their fear of being drained. They hold a candle that burns bright but melts fast. Every social exchange costs energy, and they measure that cost carefully. This doesn't doom them to solitude. In fact, many flourish in one-on-one settings or small, safe circles. Studies suggest that introverted or socially reserved individuals often excel in lasting relationships because they invest deeply once trust is built. They may not attend every party, but when they show up emotionally, it's real. Still, avoidance can lead to loneliness. Humans are wired for belonging, and even the most introspective need to feel part of something larger. The challenge is finding environments that allow engagement without self-betrayal. Small gatherings, shared passions, quiet rituals. It's not about forcing sociability, but redefining it. Psychologists now recognize social fatigue, the depletion that follows prolonged social exposure. For highly sensitive people, it arrives sooner. A smile grows heavy. Laughter turns hollow. The need for silence emerges not from sadness, but from the need to return to equilibrium. Those who avoid events often develop subtle coping rituals. Arriving late, leaving early, volunteering in the kitchen for a quiet task, glancing at a phone between chats. These aren't signs of disinterest, they're ways of managing invisible social pressure. And here's what's rarely said. Avoidance isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's wisdom, knowing your limits, honoring your nervous system. That's emotional intelligence in motion. The struggle isn't the avoidance itself, but the self-judgment that follows. We're taught that being social equals success. But what if being self-aware is the real achievement? Balance matters, though. Total isolation, while comfortable at first, can slowly become emptiness. The psyche needs mirrors, others who reflect parts of ourselves we can't see alone. Growth happens in connection, even when that connection is quiet or rare. The goal isn't to become an extrovert. It's to find ways of connecting without losing yourself. Start small. Coffee with one trusted friend, a walk with someone comfortable in silence, an online community where you engage on your own terms. Socializing doesn't have to mean noise. It can mean resonance, eye contact, shared laughter, deep presence. What socially reserved people seek isn't isolation. It's authenticity. They aren't hiding from others. They're searching for something real enough to step out for. And sometimes they just need others to understand. When they say, "I can't make it," it's not rejection. It's regulation. They're saying no to overwhelm and yes to peace. It's a quiet courage, the kind that doesn't get celebrated but deserves to. It takes strength to honor your emotional bandwidth in a world that glorifies overstimulation. The psychology of social avoidance isn't a story of fear. It's a story of emotional economy. Every interaction has a cost, and they've learned to spend their energy where it matters most. For many, the hardest part isn't saying no, it's living with the echo of that no. The guilt, the worry about disappointing others, the replay of justifications. I needed space. I was tired. Maybe next time. But deep down, it's not about one event. It's a pattern. Connection calls and silence answers. This pattern often begins earlier than adulthood. Perhaps it started when a child felt unseen in a loud room, or became the quiet listener in a talkative family. Stillness felt safer than sound. Over time, that stillness became identity, not an absence of presence, but a guarded form of it. Psychologically, this can lead to emotional inhibition, the tendency to suppress expression to avoid discomfort. It's not fear of others, but a search for safety within. Yet within that guarded space often lies an extraordinary inner world. Solitude can nurture creativity, reflection, and empathy that struggle to grow in constant noise. These individuals are often the thinkers, observers, quiet anchors in a chaotic world.
No, I refuse to fragment.
Their silence isn't emptiness.
Pull myself back together.
It's where meaning takes
Whole
root.
again.
But when solitude lasts too long, that same space can become a cage, built from overthinking, self-doubt, and imagined judgment. Psychology calls this the avoidance cycle. The more you avoid discomfort, the more power it holds. Each no brings momentary relief, but strengthens the link between socializing and stress. It's like closing a window to keep noise out, only to find the air growing stale. Breaking the cycle isn't about forcing interaction. It's about changing what socializing represents, seeing it not as an energy drain, but as an experiment in self-expression. Small steps taken gently. One of the most misunderstood traits of those who avoid groups is their high self-awareness. They notice bodily cues, the tight chest before entering a room, the shallow breath before speaking, the quickened pulse when attention turns their way. Untrained, that awareness becomes self-consciousness. But with practice, it can transform into emotional grounding. The goal isn't to mute awareness, but to anchor it through breath, sensory focus, gentle reminders. I am safe. Because much of social avoidance isn't about other people. It's about the body remembering moments it didn't feel safe. Ironically, those who avoid crowds are often among the most emotionally generous people you'll meet. They love deeply, remember details, check in quietly, show care in subtle ways. They just struggle with the stage of life, the part that demands performance. For them, love isn't loud. It's the thoughtful message, the small gesture, the way they listen without interruption. Their connection isn't made in the crowd. It's built in quiet moments most never see. From an evolutionary view, not everyone was meant to be at the tribe's center. Balance was key. Some hunted, some gathered, some guarded. Those who observed often detected threats, sensed tensions, noticed patterns others missed. Their quiet was survival. Today, that sensitivity means picking up on emotional undertones or reading a room too quickly. When everything hits at once, the mind retreats into silence as a shield. The modern world doesn't make this easy. It glorifies visibility, networking, posting, performing. But avoiding crowds isn't laziness. It's a quiet rebellion against overstimulation. It's the body saying, I won't trade my peace just to be seen. Still, peace and growth must coexist. Too much peace becomes numbness. Too much solitude becomes self-erasure. The goal isn't to fight the need for quiet. It's to find connection that doesn't break it. In therapeutic terms, graded exposure means taking small, manageable steps toward discomfort, not to eliminate sensitivity, but to expand tolerance. For someone who avoids gatherings, that might mean staying for 15 minutes, then leaving without guilt, or calling instead of meeting in person. The aim isn't to force change, but to teach the nervous system. Connection doesn't always mean danger. Slowly, a new story forms. I can handle this. Why does simply being around others sometimes feel so heavy? Because social settings act as mirrors. Every interaction reflects something back about who we think we are. When others share a laugh we don't understand, we feel separate. When groups bond effortlessly, we feel out of rhythm. That dissonance highlights the gap between the self we show and the self we are. The more authentic a person is, the wider that gap can feel in shallow settings. So avoidance, in a way, is a refusal to fragment. The saying, I won't split myself to belong. That's not dysfunction, it's integrity. But integrity can be lonely, because the world often mistakes stillness for absence. Those who avoid events aren't always missing. They're elsewhere, rebuilding energy, thinking deeply about things no one asked them to consider. They replay conversations, analyze meanings, wonder if they were understood. They live in the aftertaste of interaction, processing long after the event ends. That's the cost of depth. Yet in that depth lies beauty. Because when they do connect, it's profound. Their conversations feel like shelter. Their attention feels sacred. You don't compete for their interest. When they're with you, they're truly with you. They give what many can't, undivided presence. They don't flutter from person to person. They root into meaning. They're not chasing validation, they're seeking resonance. Healing, for many, begins by reframing solitude not as escape, but as preparation. You can love quiet and still crave connection. You can enjoy isolation without disappearing. Balance isn't found in constant exposure. It's found in knowing when to step forward and when to step back. When you start seeing your patterns without judgment, avoidance becomes awareness. You make choices not from fear, but from alignment. The world doesn't need everyone to be loud. It needs listeners. It needs those who sense a room's temperature before anyone speaks, who say less but mean more. Social avoidance, when understood, can mature into social wisdom, The ability to
Honoring one's
engage
own
deeply,
space
not
creates room to
frequently,
let
because
others
depth,
in.
not
A door
noise,
opening
creates true
gently,
connection.
not
Maybe
swinging
that's
wide.
the hidden truth here. Those who avoid gatherings aren't rejecting the world. They're longing for a version of it that feels real. A world where they don't have to filter themselves into pieces just to fit in. Where silence isn't awkward, eye contact replaces small talk, and emotion is allowed to breathe. Until they find that world, they build it in solitude. And sometimes that's the most honest way to live. Because one day, when they walk into a room again, it will be different. They won't be trying to blend in. They'll arrive quiet, grounded, whole. And those who notice will feel it. A presence that doesn't seek attention. A calm that doesn't ask for approval. That's the power of those who once avoided. They return with depth. And perhaps that's the lesson for all of us. Connection doesn't begin in the crowd. It begins in solitude, in knowing yourself deeply enough to show up as someone real. When you understand your own silence, you finally have something worth saying. When you honor your own space, you finally have room to let others in. Those who avoid social events aren't broken. They're cultivating a peace that makes genuine connection possible. And when they do connect, it isn't performance. It's truth. Thank you everyone watching my video. Please subscribe my channel. For more update,